Hello, everyone. My name is Miguel Myers. Welcome to My Horror Confessional, where every week I will have a guest come on and talk about one classic horror movie that they haven't seen and why. We'll discuss the movie, the actors, and probably get off topic quite a bit. Once I believe they have properly atoned, I will absolve them of their horror movie sin. Today, we have Susan Snyder, who is a two-time Splatterpunk Award-nominated writer of horror short fiction and poetry. Her debut poetry collection, Broken Nails, was released in 2020 and was nominated for a 2021 Elgin Award. Her work can be seen in the Horror Writers Association Poetry Showcase and multiple magazines and anthologies. Susan also writes a weekly shark movie review blog called Sharksploitation Sunday. In 2021, her book, Encyclopedia Sharksploitanica, was released, a comprehensive and tongue-in-cheek guide to 85 of the best and worst shark movies known to mankind. Susan, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I was so excited. I remember I was talking with John Balsisberger when he was on the show early in my first season, and we were just shooting the shit before or after, and he was telling me about this book. No, I apologize. I went on his website to kind of see some of the stuff he had, and I came across your book, Encyclopedia Sharksploitanica, and I ordered it right away because I heard it and it sounded fucking amazing. And then I talked to John afterwards, and he was telling me like about the books that he's most excited in. This is one of them. And then I got to meet you at Max and Lori's Ghoulish Book Festival earlier this year in San Antonio, and we're actually on a panel together for, was it creepy cartoons of our childhood?
It was.
Yeah. And that was so much fun. Can you tell me a little bit about where the idea for Encyclopedia Sharksploitanica came from?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the seeds for that were planted in my childhood. So, like, very cliche. I saw Jaws, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little older than you, Miguel. So, it was closer to when the movie actually came out.
Okay.
But yeah, it scared the shit out of me. But my dad turned to me and said, "Do you know that those are real? That's a real animal." And I was like, whoa, like that monster is real. And that was it. I was in love with sharks. So my first degree was in marine biology, and um, didn't really get very far with a career in marine biology. It's really hard to do. So now I'm an accountant. But yeah, I stuck with the shark movies, like any shark movie, good, bad, ugly. I mean, complete shit show. It doesn't matter. I'm watching it. And like just a few years ago, God, I don't even know how many years ago, I met John Baltisberger. he's one of my best friends now. So, but he had Madness Heart Press was just a fledgling publisher. He started getting some blogs on the website. So I started blogging about shark movies. Then I started my own website. Then I kind of had this kooky idea, like, why don't I put all of this stuff into a book? And I can't believe John was like, okay, fuck yeah, I'll publish it. I'm like, really? And he did. And so now I have a YouTube channel, Sharksploitation Sunday. And that one is it's starting to blow up now. So I'm starting to get like subscribers and views, and trying to kind of take it into that venue. But yeah, every week I watch a shark movie and comment on it for the world to see. So that's how I keep my marine biology degree useful in some way.
Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah, John's a crazy motherfucker, so I can see him totally jumping at this. It's reviews of tons of these movies, and you've added some of your like thoughts about these movies, and a lot of them are it's very funny. And I just wanted to mention, and I'm holding it. I was lucky enough to I got it from you at Ghoulish Fest, and I've just been referring to it whenever I want a quick laugh or something like that, because I'm never going to see 90% of these movies.
Oh, and you probably shouldn't. I watch them so you don't have to. There's some of
Ex-
them, yeah. But yeah, it's
exactly.
very self-deprecating humor at times. I really.
And so, like, some of my favorite, of course, like you have the Sharknado. That's hilarious. In fact, I bought it with my wife in mind because Sharknado is one of her favorite movies
Mm,
because she knows how bad it is and she loves how bad it is.
but that's a good bad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it started to lose the thread after I don't even know how many more how
Five,
many there are. Yeah,
six.
five. Yeah, but that first one was like hit the sweet spot for both of us. And then my second favorite is RoboShark, and my third is Open Water 3.
Mm.
And if you wouldn't mind, I would just like to read from the last paragraph in the review. And it goes, all in all, this isn't the worst shark movie on earth. It just features one of the worst characters on earth. Please excuse me while I calm myself with a Quaalude and clean up my shit stained sofa. So this is what we're talking about. This is the amazing content in Encyclopedia Sharksploitanica.
Well, thank you.
So do you remember, so Open Water 3, do you remember who the worst character was in that movie?
I can't remember her name, but she's the
Hmm.
blonde. So there's two guys and a blonde chick afloat in the ocean because their cage dive went awry. And she's just like she's cheating on her boyfriend with the other guy, which I believe is his brother. And it all comes out like while she's floating with these guys, like, and they're all dying in the middle of the open ocean. It all comes out. And she also manages to kill a person who's in a they finally come upon this like raft, this like survival raft, and there's a
Hmm.
woman in there, and they're like, oh my god, so they go in there and they're like, oh my god, we're saved. And this stupid bitch goes like, she starts panicking because she's really fucking dumb, and she shoots a flare off on the inside of this covered survival raft, catches it on fire, and burns the survivor that was in there, burns her alive, while all of them jump back in the water. And I'm like, wow, just wow. I mean, I was like, I had to take my pulse, like I was going into a pan. I'm like, I hate her so much. I hate her so much. I hate her
Yeah.
so much. Yeah. So that's why she's the worst person.
I can agree with you on that one. So let's talk a little bit about your history with horror. So I know we talked at Ghoulish about like childhood favorites, cartoons and stuff like that. So growing up, what was your family life like? Like it's when it comes to, this isn't a therapy session. It's just when it comes to like horror movies. Is that something that they allowed you to have, or was it more of a strict upbringing?
Well, my parents were divorced when I was pretty young,
Mhm.
so it was just my mom, and we moved in with my grandparents. My mom's like super open-minded, so I wasn't old enough to really get into horror until we moved in with my grandparents, and my uncle, my mom's brother, lived with them too. And at the time, I'm about, I don't know, 8, 9 years old, and he's like an older teenager, maybe early 20s. And his room was like the forbidden closet of wonders, right? So he had horror books in there, mostly like Stephen King and stuff like that. He had VHS covers in there that I was just fascinated to stare at. And so finally, he's the one who introduced me to horror. And like, really, it
Mhm.
started with books. um, so I started reading Stephen King when I was way, 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 way too young to read it. And I think my first one was Cujo. And I'm like, no, I mean, that just like messed me up. But I do remember, like, of course, the horror cartoons we talked about that, like, I would see. But they were kind of goofy horror. I mean, it was
Yeah.
later on that there were awesome ones like Tales from the Crypt Keeper and stuff like that. But back then it was just kind of like dorky stuff, like Scooby Doo and Groovy Ghoulies and stuff. But that was like the first time I saw a horror movie that I can remember besides Jaws was I saw Alligator, and I think it
Okay.
was on TV,
Yeah.
and I was hiding in the stairwell, looking around the corner, and oh my god, I mean, I was just absolutely traumatized. But I liked the feeling. I really liked it. And my grandparents, they were a little more strict, and my mom didn't give a shit like what I did. Like, so I would hang out in the basement. I'm an only child. I would hang out in the basement by myself and try to recreate the scare that I got from Alligator and Jaws. So I would like stare in mirrors and make like monster faces at myself, or I would put on creepy music like haunted. There was like this haunted mansion record that they put out that had like all of these like haunted house songs, and I would turn off all the lights and listen to that and scare the shit out of myself, and I loved it. So I was just like addicted to being scared, and it's never left me.
That's awesome. I recently, I had never been to either Walt Disney World or Disneyland or whatever, and my brother won a trip through his work earlier this year, and I went.
Hmm.
And Haunted Mansion, it was in Florida. That's the one we went to. I don't know if there's one in California as
Yep,
well.
yep, Disneyland.
Yeah. But the Haunted Mansion in Florida was so much fun. It was even out standing outside in line. They had like like the fake mausoleums,
Mhm.
with working things on the side of it. It was really cool. Up until then, I didn't get the Haunted Museum vibe or thing that everybody loved about it, but now I totally get it.
Oh yeah, I have a whole wall in my bedroom, like right next to me. That's like art that I spent way too much money on. That's all Haunted Mansion themed, and like I can recite you the entire script of the Haunted Mansion, like
Is
verbatim.
that the next book, a book on Haunted
Oh
Mansion
yeah,
stuff?
maybe I should. I don't know. I think that's been done kind of ad nauseum though at this point. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of people ahead of me on that, but that's a great ride.
And how about your family? You said that you kind of had some like family members who were interested in already and kind of got you started. How about like friends or a friend group? Did you have a friend group that kind of liked horror as well? I'm always interested because my listeners have heard me say this a bunch of times, but my horror path has always been a really singular one. It wasn't until recent that I started to get a group of friends
Mm.
that actually liked horror. So I'm always interested to hear what my guest's path was like.
Yeah, I mean, mine definitely started off with like my uncle introducing me. Then I kind of took it into my own really weird, my weird only child, strange playing with myself horror thing. But
Hmm.
my friends, I wouldn't say they were into horror, but like we would have sleepovers, like 11, 12, 13 years old. And the parents were always in on this joke. So they would let the neighborhood boys come in and terrorize us. So we would be
What?
like watching. Oh yeah, no, this was crazy. This was crazy. This neighborhood was nuts. And so we would be watching. I remember it was Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. And it was the first time seen those two movies. And of course, it's intense, especially Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, fuck, oh
Yeah.
my God. So they let the boys in, snuck them in the back door. One had a hockey mask on, and one had Freddy Krueger nails claw on, and they
Hmm.
snuck in, and he reached his hand around with the Freddy Krueger claw, and I got up, ran out the door, and ran down the street. And the parents had to go chase me to get me back because I was
Wow.
so scared. But that stuff happened all the time. And it wasn't like my friends were into it. They just kind of thought it was fun to like watch these movies. And that was
Yeah.
one night that they could actually, their parents let them watch these movies where I could watch them all the time. But, I remember one, we
That's
always would have
wild.
a slasher movie, because that was always the fun thing. And some wonderful, God bless this mother, she didn't know what Last House on the Left was. She thought it was a slasher film,
Oof.
and she
Okay.
showed it to a bunch of 12-year-old girls. And she left the room. Like,
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds like she just left the room then.
she just left the room. She had no idea. She just thought I was a dumb, like, happy birthday to me or something like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
holy. So I was up all night. Everybody else was sleeping fine. I was up all night, 12 years old, just completely like processing what I just saw. Cause I mean, that is not even, there's so many adults who can't get through that movie.
Right. That is intense.
Very intense. So yeah, I had friends who they would just do it for fun and sleeping, sleepover parties and stuff, but nobody was like into it like I was really until probably maybe college when I really started finding my tribe.
Hmm. That's awesome. So, when we were talking about your poetry collection, Broken Nails, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was another thing that John Baltusberger was lovely enough to put out, and he kind of pushed me. He really was like pushing me into doing a poetry collection. As you know, he is a horror poet as well, so he
Hmm.
liked my
The
stuff. And
kaiju poet.
kaiju poet. He's just fantastic and super talented. So he's like, "Oh, you should do this." And okay, so I kind of did it where it was the first half was like speculative poetry. Um, so I was just writing, fictional stories, whatever, in poetic form. But then the second half, that doesn't even make sense. The second third is raw. So that was the hard part, was like putting raw poetry, like about my life and my stuff that's happened to me in my life, sexual assault and harassment and just bad, abusive relationships, stuff like that. Um, and then third, the last third is about Satan. So that was like my little theme, put it all together and put it out. So I've gotten a lot of really good feedback about, especially about the raw stuff, because I think like, and oddly enough, mostly men, have responded to the poems that I wrote that were talking about some really deep like sexual trauma that I had.
Hmm.
I find that like the men that have talked to me about it have been kind of like, wow, like I didn't know that would do that to you, or I didn't know that you would think about it that way, or so I think it was kind of good to have that out for that too. And it was
Yeah,
cathartic for me, and if somebody reads it and it helps them, that's awesome.
that's great. That's great to hear. Are you currently working on something right now that you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I do. I have a follow up to Broken Nails. Is going to be coming out next year, so I'm working on that now. It's a little bit more, I would say. I'm more comfortable being raw, and I'm just not. It's a no holds barred. I'm just going for it with this one. But I'm
Hmm.
also really excited about. I'm working on a collaboration with Christine Morgan, and she's fabulous. So for those of your listeners who don't know who Christine Morgan is, she's a Splatterpunk award-winning author. She just had Warlock Infernal just came out. She was nominated for a Splatterpunk award for Trenchmouth this year. She's amazing, and she's got a lot of stuff out there. And I am so happy to be collaborating with her on a book that we are calling Nympho Shark Fuck Frenzy. So that should be out next year.
One, please.
I know that's basically the reaction we're getting. When we were at KillerCon, we announced it, and her daughter was in the audience. That was the first time she'd heard the title, and she was just sitting there shaking her head, just like, "What the hell, mom? Like, what are
Can
you?"
you can you say it again one more time, please?
Nympho Shark Fuck Frenzy.
Amazing. Can you tell us anything about it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be shark porn. Like it's like sharks fucking sharks, sharks fucking people. Um, there's going to be a marine biologist and her sordid relationship with her captive great white shark, and you know, uh, we we are definitely playing on the fact that male sharks have two dicks. They actually have two genital claspers, so that's going to come into play. So this is
Hmm.
going to be a lot of fun. And like Christine she is. I mean, she goes there. She does not care about sexual depravity and violence in her works. Like she's kind of the queen of it, the queen of
Yeah.
smut. So this is I'm having a lot of fun. So I'm bringing a little bit of science into it, because when you read a book called Nympho Shark Fuck Frenzy, you do expect a high caliber of scientific plausibility. So I'm going to make sure that we keep things like realistic. I mean, as realistic as it shark fucking a human could be.
And so I recently had Brian Asman on the show,
Mm,
and he of course has his book, Man, Fuck This House.
hmm
And I would tell him how much I love that title and how it was probably one of the better titles I've heard. Then you come on and completely destroy it with the name of this book. It's
Sorry,
amazing.
Brian.
So how does the process work when two people are writing a book? Is it fully collaborative where like you write a sentence and she writes a sentence, or like you do take pages or chapters, or how does that work?
That's a really good question because neither one of us have done it before. So it's
Mhm.
like fly by the seat of our pants. So what we've been doing is like she just starts writing stuff. Like she started writing like from the shark's POV because she's really good at doing that. Like, because she just wrote Trenchmouth, which is about like an anglerfish writing from an anglerfish point of view. So she kind of started it going, and then I came in and started writing the marine biologist, and then she started writing some like kids in the aquarium, and then we started like bringing it all together. So everybody does it differently, and so we're just kind of meshing things together rather than like she writes a chapter, I write a chapter, or she writes a line, I write a line. It's more like
Mm.
she writes a thread and then I'm working around the thread. So like we're bouncing around a little bit. So yeah, it's hard to explain.
No, it sounds great. It sounds really interesting. And do you have a release date for that yet,
Oh
or
no,
time frame?
no.
Okay.
You got to get the damn thing written first. But
Yeah.
yeah, life gets in the way sometimes, so but we're getting there.
I completely understand. So, before we jump into the movie, could you please let my listeners know where they can follow you on any social medias, your website, your blog, where they can purchase your books, any way they can support you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I have a website, sharksploitationsunday.com. My YouTube channel is Sharksploitation Sunday. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter if you look up, guess what? Sharksploitation Sunday. If you just remember Sharksploitation Sunday, you're pretty good to go. And then also Amazon. You can get the books. You can get it right through Madness Heart Press. You can get it through Godless if you're interested in some digital formats. Yeah.
Nice. I love the brand that you've made for yourself.
I
I
thought
love it.
about changing it to Sharksploitation Susan, but then I'm like, no, it's Sharksploitation. Like it's just been that for so long. I can't change it now. So
Yeah. And I was thinking when we met at Ghoulish, I was like, I know there's somebody else who I not know, but I know of who's also a big shark person and a big like water. I forget the term that she uses, but is a big like proponent of like horror movies with sharks.
mhm.
And I was like, oh yeah, it's Dr. Rebecca McKendry.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so you actually got to interact with her, right, on Twitter about it,
Yeah,
about your
so,
book.
like, I met her, years back at the Texas Frightmare weekend in Dallas, and she's always been, like, a big hero of mine because all of her work with, like, Fangoria, and then she's directing her own movies now. I mean, she's
She's awesome.
fucking awesome, and she's
Yes.
also has a, PhD. She's a professor, and so I pitched her this idea of a shark book, right? I'm like, well, what if I did this, And she's like, oh my God, nobody's done that. You need to fucking do that. I would buy that. So then flash forward to you, right? And then you just send me this, like, oh yeah, you know who would really like this is Rebecca McKendry. And I'm like, you don't say. I just happens to be the inspiration that like got me to actually do this. And so like I got in touch with her because of you, sent her a copy of the book. She totally plugged it on social media and she was amazing. Like so
Yeah, that was so cool to see, like, the worlds combining. That was awesome.
oh, it's so cool. I was like, oh my God, every time I see her in a documentary or something, I'm like, she's totally plugged my book. Oh my God.
Yeah. She was on Shudder just started releasing their, like,
Yeah.
101 worst scares or best scares in horror movies or whatever, and
Yep.
she was on there. That's what the last, like, time I've seen her. The most
Same.
recent
I
time
was
is
watching
yeah.
that yesterday.
Yeah. Okay, so you are here to confess your horror sin of never having seen Let's Scare Jessica to Death from 1971. Is that correct?
Yes, I will confess to that sin.
All right. So, can you tell me a little bit about why you think this particular movie passed you by? Is it that you have never heard of it before, or was it on the list, but it just kept getting bumped for other things?
I vaguely remember hearing that. I mean, that's a pretty stand out title. Let's scare Jessica to death. Right. So I know I've heard of it before, but I think that it just like didn't appeal. I mean, I'm thinking, and if I had heard of it, it's probably back in like the days, the Blockbuster days, or like the day even before Blockbuster, probably.
Hmm.
Like what I would see, I would probably saw the VHS cover or something in a video store and went, meh, it doesn't look that good.
Yeah, I was listening to or reading an interview with the director, and he was saying that for a while it was hard to even find this on VHS, and then even DVD, and very recently, within the last couple of years, I think Arrow Video released a Blu-ray version with commentary from the director, which I really want to get a hold of.
Ooh, yeah.
But so I can see that it also just being difficult to find and watch.
Yeah, that could be it. I don't know. But I Love Video probably had it though. They have everything. If they were gonna
Yeah,
find a copy of something, they would have it.
they unfortunately closed.
I know.
Yeah, and then
We
so
were
did
there
Vulcan
every day.
Video.
Still, I was there every single day, the one on Airport. Every
Yeah, it was so when Vulcan Video. So we're talking about local Austin VHS rental places, and actually just a movie rental place. I'm south, so I was Vulcan Video, but you had I Love Video up north, and
mhm,
both of those locations were just amazing. Some of these movies you can't find anymore. And I know for Vulcan Video, I was hoping that they would have a sale, but somebody came in and bought their whole collection.
Oh,
One person. I imagine they have to be a collector and they're gonna take care of them and all that. So that's good to hear. But like I would have also liked to get a chance to own some of their more rare prints,
oh
more
yeah.
of the rare
Mhm.
movies. But RIP. But physical
Hmm.
media lives on. I just spent about $100 at a movie pop-up thing this Friday. So I still collect physical media.
Excellent.
So let's go ahead and talk about Let's Scare Jessica to Death. So it was written and directed by John D. Hancock. And this was originally devised as a horror satire. The original script title was It Drinks Hippie Blood.
No.
Yes, that was the original title. But
Well, that, oh God, it's kind of a toss up between those two. And I wish I liked better.
right. Hancock eventually rewrote the screenplay into something far more unsettling and disturbing. And he said, I made it eminently clear to the producers that I did not want to do a satire of a horror picture. He then retitled the movie Jessica. He said, I wanted to do a movie that was legitimately terrifying. And he pulled together chilling influences, including the films of Alfred Hitchcock, Henry James's novella, The Turn of the Screw, Sheridan Le Fanu's novel Carmilla, and he ended up creating a kind of a hallucinatory, nightmarish film. According to him, the original concept involved four hippies, two couples who moved to the countryside and encounter vampires. But Hancock had an issue with the group dynamic, knowing that things are scarier if you're alone. So he cited the paranoia he felt as a young teen when his parents left him alone. So he then reduced the couples to one and introduced the idea of Jessica having recently left a mental institution after seeing a similar concept in the Robert Wise film The Haunting. Upon completion, the film was sold to Paramount Pictures, which changed the title from Jessica to Let's Scare Jessica to Death. And it was released in August of 71. And it actually premiered at the Criterion Theater, which was owned by the producers of the movie. The title Let's Scare Jessica to Death, while being a good title, I don't know if it matches.
It totally doesn't match the movie.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they didn't use It Drinks Hippie Blood because I actually didn't get the vampire thing till way later because I had no idea
Right.
what this movie was about. So I'm just going into it like, what the fuck am I watching?
I'm so happy that you were able to experience it without knowing like the
No
twist, because
clue.
it's a
I
really
had
cool
no
twist.
clue. It is a cool twist, but like that, the title "It Drinks Hippie Blood" would have given that away like immediately,
Yeah,
right? So you'd be
exactly.
vampires. So but Let's Scare Jessica to Death doesn't make any sense since she's not dead at the end, and it's just like they're not really doing that. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would call it maybe Let's Get Jessica out of that shitty relationship. Maybe that might have
Yes, we're gonna talk about it. We'll talk.
been.
So the movie does star Zora Lampert as Jessica, Barton Heyman as Duncan, Kevin O'Connor as Woody, Gretchen Corbett as the girl, Alan Manson as Sam Dorker, which I love the name Dorker, and Mary Claire Costello as Emily. So we get an absolutely magnificent shot of fog over the lake as the sun rises. It's got beautiful pinks, oranges, purples, and blues in the shot. I absolutely loved it. It's a great way to start the movie. And I was reading up on it, and the crew actually arrived very early in the morning to this scene, and so they got everything off of the trucks and set up to do this shot and then used it throughout the movie, but they had not intended to get the shot. It was just luck.
Oh yeah, gotta get it while you can.
Yeah. So wearing just a nightgown, Jessica sits in a rowboat staring at the water. And we hear a voiceover say, I sit here and I can't believe that it happened. And yet I have to believe it. Dreams or nightmares, madness or sanity, I don't know which is which. We back up a few weeks. Two men are putting a huge wooden box resembling a coffin into the back of a hearse. Next, the hearse is driving down the highway as the chilling piano score by Orville Stober starts, and we get a great title card, Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
Yeah, that was great music.
Yeah, great music. And actually, Stober and director Hancock have worked together many times in their careers. And Stober's payment for this film was a brand new guitar. That's all he got paid for it.
Nice.
They drive up to a cemetery and slowly the back of the hearse opens up from inside. And I thought it was really cool. Like they were trying for a second to make it seem like this perhaps coffin that was loaded in, somebody opened. That's what I was thinking. Like the person escaped and they're coming out.
Yeah. And just like, oh, I totally was like, "Oh, where are they going with this? Like, are they gonna put the body in the thing?" And, but no, I was like, "Oh, no, they're just goths." Like, totally
Yeah, they're pre-goths, right?
pre-goths.
And our titular character runs out, Jessica, laughing as she runs into the graveyard to sketch one of the headstones. The two men from earlier, Duncan, who's Jessica's husband, and Woody, their friend, stand around the hearse waiting. And we see a shot of the word love and a peace sign painted on the driver's side door. And first of all, my first impression is Woody is wearing a dope ass scarf and a full mustache, which I always appreciate. I am an admirer. All I can grow is catfish mustache. That's why I keep it a stubble. So when I see a full mustache, I'm like, first of all, I'm jealous and I'm an admirer of it.
Oh, yeah, it seems like the, 70s and 80s were really, the men had such thick facial hair. It was just all over the place, just hairy, hairy men. It was a good time, good time.
It's a good time, and I can't just come back a little bit with full beards and all that, but they're just trying to replicate the best,
Yeah, yeah, they're wannabes.
Yeah. So then Woody says not to worry because the farm will be great for her. And we kind of see that they're like looking at her and like they're almost feeling sorry for her. I don't know. Like I got a bit of judgment on their faces. What did you think?
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, I was kind of like, "Wait, what is going on with her?" So that immediately makes you think, okay, why is she got, a mental problem? Or is she, is she injured? Like, I couldn't quite figure out, why. But, until she started having her inner dialogue, then I'm just kind of like, "Huh."
Yeah. So we get a voiceover from Jessica saying how, for the first time in months, she's free. She doesn't need to worry about the doctors anymore. She's okay now. She can forget that place, and it's a chance to start over. Just like you're saying, we're being fed bits and pieces of the story. While she's doing this, she sees a girl dressed in white and a dressing covering her throat, just staring at her. And Jessica turns to tell the others, but when she looks back, the girl is gone. She then starts to hear indecipherable whispers when suddenly Duncan yells at her to hurry up. As she's getting in the car, she looks back and thinks, don't tell them, act normal. And in the car, she reads one of the etchings she's made. It goes, frail as the leaves that shiver on a spray. Like them we flourish, like them decay. And you're totally right. They're so goth.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
Well, and
I never
she's
put it
so
together.
happy. Like, she's so happy with that thing. She's like, "Woohoo!" I mean, later on, he's like, yeah, she surrounds herself with it, but it's like never really, never really goes into why. Like, what's
Right.
going on with that? Because it seems like he's happy that he brought her to the cemetery, and he's like happy that she's happy doing this stuff. Like, she's got a thing for cemeteries, but where did that come from? Like, it's just kind of a weird foreshadowing to what's going to happen later on. But with it, why don't I don't know. I think I'd really like that chick. Actually, she seems like she's pretty cool. Haunted,
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be like, oh yeah, we'll totally go grave rubbing together, Jessica. Then with that.
Is this something that you've heard of? Like this is something I've never come across where people just go and rub.
Oh yeah, I've done it
Yeah.
many, 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 many times. Yeah,
Okay.
I grew up in New England, and there's a lot of old cemetery, old cemeteries, and yeah, you would just go and you got your little black crayon thing and some paper, and you could just rub it and make a little something for yourself.
Okay.
So, yeah,
You guys would have been best friends.
I know, we totally, oh, Jessica, you complete me.
So what do you do with them afterwards? Is it like a collection thing? Do you
Yeah,
hang
you
them up
just
like she did or
yeah, you just find wacky ones, weird ones, and then you just make a rubbing and keep it.
nice? Is that something you still do?
I haven't in a long time, but I don't, I might now.
Okay. This movie does take place in the Northeast,
Mhm.
Connecticut, I believe.
New York.
New York. Okay, New York.
I think they take the ferry from Connecticut. Well, no, you might be right, because they take the ferry that says Connecticut, but their license plate says New York. So maybe they're
Right.
going to
Yeah,
Connecticut.
they moved from New York to
To
Connecticut. Yeah.
Connecticut. Yeah.
So next we see that the hearse is being ferried over, and the ferryman comes down slowly, looking over the hearse and the huge box in the back. He approaches the driver's side door and asks Woody what they have in the back, to which Woody replies, "My mother-in-law." And the man stops to ponder this for a bit and then says, "I wished it was mine." and laughs as if he knows he's just told a naughty joke. And it's like, okay, so we're starting with mother-in-law jokes. So you can tell it's the 70s, right?
Take my wife, please.
Right. Ooh. So then he asks them where they're going, and they say they're going to the old bishop place. And this takes what little smile he had right off of his face. And he informs them that they'll be on the other side very soon. And then I was thinking, the other side of what?
Oh, good catch on that one.
So after arriving in their new hometown, they take a spin around the downtown area, which is literally a traffic circle. As they do so, the local street toughs look on. And these four street toughs happen to be of the older variety, some being helped by canes or walkers, and some with visible dressings. And they say, look at what they're driving, and damn hippies and things like that. And Duncan points out the bandages and says he thinks these guys are left over from the Civil War. As they drive off, Woody yells out the window, "It's better than a station wagon." And the old men say, "Good riddance." So my question to you is, why do you think they're driving this hearse? Because at first I didn't really connect the two. And is it just because they needed room for what we'll come to find out is a cello, or are they, like you're saying, they're goths?
Well, I don't know, because like, I mean, he's obviously married to somebody who's obsessed with grave rubbings, and she
Hmm.
can, you know what I mean? Like, she obviously can like communicate with the dead or something. So I was like, I don't know. Like, probably just to, where else are you going to put a cello? I mean,
Pickup
maybe just
truck. They also
at the
station
station wagon.
wagon.
Dude, if hearses really were cheaper than a station wagon today, I would be driving one. Like, so
My
I get
my
it.
wife said the same thing. She's like, "Nah, I would ride driver's hearse. Hell
Yeah.
yeah!" And I actually follow a girl. I actually follow a woman on TikTok who for a time lived in a hearse, and now she's like moved in, has her own apartment, but she still drives a hearse, and it looks really cool. Looks like a lot of fun.
Hmm.
So, and also the other thing here is nothing is off yet to me here about like this area. It's just a bunch of grumpy old men being grumpy old men. Was anything off to you yet at this point?
No, because it didn't even like dawn on me like why they would be bandit. Like I just thought they were like old, you
Yeah.
know, old grumpy seniors who were, oh, you damn kids, you know. So no,
Yeah.
I thought it
Okay.
was funny that he's like, hey, you want to drive around a little bit, and then he just makes one circle of the roundabout and he's off. Like that's it.
So then finally they've made it to their new house. It's a huge farmhouse with a spiral column coming out of the top. Or I'm not an architect. I don't know the names of things, but it's an old house that looks very gothy.
Yeah, goth house. Hmm.
So they pull up to the house and Jessica jumps out and exclaims, "Oh God, it's fantastic." And this smile she has on, it doesn't leave her face too much. Like she's almost always has this smile. And I don't know if it was a choice by the actress to do this, but it always kind of creeps me out when somebody is smiling in a situation in which a smile is not called for.
Yeah, I think that just like gives you a hint about her mental health, you know, and like she's not all there. Like there's something kind of off about her, like different about her, and the way that
Yeah.
she sees the world a little differently. And so I thought that was a big hint. I thought that actress did a great job actually
She
being that like kind of weird, vulnerable, you know, kind of like mentally unstable. But is she, or is she just more tuned in than everyone else? You know, she does a really good job at that.
and she did a good job of not making it a caricature
Yeah,
of somebody
was
who
subtle.
has, yeah, very subtle. I really liked it. Actually, the whole movie is up until the very end a very subtle movie, in which I really appreciated. So then she instructs Woody and Duncan what to unpack, and then she runs off to inspect the home. As she's walking up the stairs, she notices a redheaded woman rocking in a rocking chair on the porch, her face blocked by a column. Again, she goes to tell the others, but when she looks back, the woman is gone. The rocker still rocking, but now the door, which had been closed before, is ajar. Again, she starts to hear the whispering, "Jessica, why have you come here?" And she waits for the voices to die down before she approaches the porch. She notices the door still open and slowly opens it more before being startled by Woody. Again, she thinks to herself not to tell them what she saw, that they won't believe her. As they enter the house, Jessica is surprised to see the woman at the top of the stairs, and Duncan asks what's wrong, before noticing the woman himself. He lets Jess know that it's okay. He sees her too, which brings so much relief to her face, and she smiles again. Duncan grabs a fireplace shovel and they all head up, Jessica happily telling Woody that she really did see someone. And this was kind of heartbreaking for me, like just to see somebody so relieved that the horrible thing that they saw was in fact real.
Yeah, that was sad. But
Mm,
so, again, it's just kind of like, aha, like we're getting a little bit more insight into what her malady might be, like what it or what her perceived malady might be. Like why they feel like they have to like protect her, or like what has been going on, like why was she in um a sanitarium or whatever before that. It's like she's obviously seeing things, but people think they're not real. Well, maybe they were.
yeah. And that sucks that like she has to always check herself and be like, don't say anything. They're not going to believe you. And
Mhm.
then that's like, it's really terrible that you can't be honest with your partner because you're afraid that your partner is going to like basically jump on you and say, okay, we got to take you back. I know sometimes it's out of love and trying to be protective, but you actually make the person suffer more because they don't feel free to share with you.
Right. I mean, and as you start to learn about Duncan, I don't know, like he just seems like he's a douchebag. So maybe not. I don't
100%.
know. I don't know. We'll talk about it when we get there. But
Yeah.
he has definitely seemed like he was a bit of a douche. Like he's just looking for an excuse to like leave this poor person. Like she's a burden on him. That's what the impression I got pretty early on, was that she's a burden on him. And she's just
Right.
like, don't say anything. It's just easier not to say anything.
He almost plays a nice guy routine, but
Yeah.
there's something behind there.
Oh, yeah.
So then we get a static shot of Jessica first checking one room across the hall, then walking into the room where the camera is. And she walks into a fully dark room and does not turn the lights on, which we know that the electricity is working because they turn the light on. So that this is one of my biggest pet peeves in horror movies is when the electricity is working and people don't turn the lights on. Like I know you're trying to set the mood and I understand all that, but you also have to just be like, hey, flip the switch and maybe it's not working. The light bulb could be out or something. It's a very small thing, but something that it's a pet peeve of mine.
Like every episode of X-Files where it's like they never even try the switch. They just got to be flashlights. It's got to be flashlights in the dark room every time. It's like,
Yeah.
why the switch, Scully? My God. Can't always be no electricity.
I was told recently that I need to watch X Files. I've never watched it. Yes.
So we should flip the script and we'll do an episode where you're talking about you're never seeing the X Files, and we should like get you some good episodes because I got a couple in mind.
If you want, I have a Patreon where I have episodes just like a lot shorter than this, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, and we just talk about anything else that we want to talk about. If you would want to jump on it and if you would give me an episode to watch, I would definitely be down because somebody else told me the same thing that they want me to watch some X File episodes because I'm not the biggest sci-fi person.
Oh,
And so
but the ones I have in mind are definitely more horror.
okay,
Yeah,
I'm down if you're down.
yeah.
I would love
There's
to.
some
I would love
really,
to.
really, still to this day, I'm not okay. Like after watching these episodes.
Okay.
Oh yes, I will talk later. We'll talk
All right.
later.
That sounds like a lot of fun. So then she does not turn the lights on as Duncan yells in the background, we know you're here, so just come out. And so we get a POV shot of Jess as she's breathing loudly, which I thought was very interesting because this is 1971. Halloween doesn't come out for another 7 years, which is arguably the most famous POV shot where you can hear somebody breathing. And so I thought this was really cool. And then suddenly the girl jumps out and screams and tries to run out, but is quickly apprehended by Woody and Duncan, who question her. She says she just found this place and moved in, and they advised her that they are now the new owners of the house. After this misunderstanding, she says she'll go get her things and walks off, Woody looking after her. Jess follows after her and asks where she will go, what she will do, and the woman says she doesn't know and doesn't care too much either. Jess invites her to stay for dinner and they'll drive her to town in the morning. At first hesitant, the woman agrees and then introduces herself as Emily. So Woody and Duncan have now dragged the box into the house. Later, after dinner, they are all around the table drinking and laughing. Woody pours himself and Emily some more wine, and Emily strums at a lute.
Is it a lute?
Everything that I looked up said it was a lute.
Okay,
I don't
I
know
thought
musical
lute.
instruments.
I'm like mandolin, lute. I don't know. What do I know
Yeah.
from lutes? But okay, well, she was jamming. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they ask Emily if she's been to school, and she says she has been in and out of school, aimlessly wandering, and she's not sure why. And Jess asks her if she lives somewhere. And Emily says she does, but she hasn't been there for a long time, and she's not sure she's ready to go back. This line in the movie was one of the lines that stood with me after watching it, because I really wonder where it was that she hasn't been back to, because this was the house that she grew up in, that she was, well, we'll find out, right, that this is the house that she grew up in, that she was born in. And so where is it that she hasn't been to for a very long time? Do you have
Yeah,
any
I
guesses? Or
that's a good point. I have no idea because if she was unless the Bishop family moved there after she is, like it wasn't like she wasn't born there, maybe they moved there after or something. I mean, I don't know. They never
Hmm.
really unless she was just trying to throw them off.
Right, which she does. Yeah, she does a lot too. Yeah. So then she starts playing the lute and humming. Duncan, smoking a pipe, complete douchebag,
Mhm.
gets up from the table and walks out to the huge box. She starts singing, "Stay forever, my love. We're together, my love. Leave the world you know about and stay with me, my love," which is very telling. Uh,
Ah,
yeah.
yes. I still didn't get it though. I still didn't
Right.
get fire. I was not picking up on her vibes at all. Like I just was like, I don't know where this movie's going.
Yeah. So as she says this last part, Duncan has now produced a cello and starts playing along with her, making the song infinitely more creepy because it's a low doom doom doom. I thought like a bass line had dropped, it was it was pretty funny. So as they play together, we hear Jess thinking he likes her. And then she starts tidying up. We see this a lot throughout the movie, is like she'll see an inappropriate interaction between Duncan and Emily, and she'll just write it off or she won't bring it up. And
Mhm.
I thought, what relationship do they have? Because like, if the roles were reversed, if me and my wife were the situation that we were in, I'd be like, hey, what are you doing? But maybe it means she's more. Well, obviously she's not comfortable with it because she's bringing it up. So I don't know. What did you think about this?
I think she's either used to it, like
Mm,
he does it a lot, and she's just like, "Oh, there he goes again," or she's like, maybe she's afraid because maybe she can't really function, or she doesn't know how to function on her own. Maybe she just feels like she can't lose him, like she needs him.
okay.
He needs to protect her. He needs to take care of her, like kind of thing. And so she just kind of puts up with it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was a little weird. It was just kind of like, girl, say something.
Yeah.
A little taste of the back of your hand. Maybe you should not be like that anymore.
So then she picks up a plate with a raw ass steak on it. Like I like my steak like a little bit bloody, but goddamn, this was so much blood. Her thoughts just say, "It's blood, Jessica," over and over and over. And it's funny because I get intrusive thoughts sometimes as well, and they'll go on and on and on. And so I kind of it only comes out when I smoke weed though, so that's why I don't smoke weed a lot. But I kind of sympathize with her on that because when they start, it's like, ah, fuck. So when the song ends, they all clap, and we learn that Duncan was with the Philharmonic, but left his job to move out here and start an apple farm, which is a more conducive environment than New York for Jess. And then Woody says he's a nut for doing it, and Jess says no, she's the nut. I was like, okay, she has a sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
So later that night, they're sitting around the fireplace talking. They ask Emily how long she's been here, and she very wryly says, ages. They ask her if she's lonely, and she says sometimes, but sometimes she hears things. Sometimes the shadows come to life. As she hears this, Jess has a grin ear to ear and shakes her head yes when Emily asks if she knows what she means. She confesses about the time she saw and heard her dead father calling to her. Duncan makes a joke in an attempt to keep the mood light, but suddenly, Emily says that they should have a seance. And my question to you here is, do you think that this was a trick to get the heat off of her? Kind of like you were saying earlier, like to, kind of throw them off track or something?
Yeah. Yeah. I think she's just kind of throwing them off her track because like so that would how would that doesn't even make sense unless well I mean maybe it did make sense. Like maybe her father was turned into a vampire before Emily was. And
Mm,
so Emily saw her come back from the grave and was like, damn, it's my daddy.
mm,
And then maybe she got turned by her dad. Like, I don't know. Or she's
yeah.
just lying. Vampires are, they want to do, you know.
Yeah. So then Emily says nothing is ever really dead. So like on a second watch, like they certainly do like sprinkle things out throughout the script, which I really appreciated. I always love a movie that rewards a second watch.
Hmm.
So then Emily
Wait,
engages
was it Emily who said the dad story or was it Jess?
Jess.
Oh, shoot. I
Yeah,
remember Emily saying it. That's what, okay. Forget that whole vampire thing that I was saying then because that makes no sense.
I
Because
see
in
what you're
my
saying though.
mind, it was Emily who was saying it.
Yeah, yeah, it was Jessica was saying because Jessica said that she was late to go visit
Oh, his
his
concert.
concert, right? Yeah. Duncan is such a weird name. You don't see that in a lot of movies. And so like I'm
Yeah.
really struck by it. So Emily engages Jessica in the most half-assed seance I've ever seen. Like they don't turn off the lights, they don't light any candles. They don't have a Ouija board. Like all this stuff that you see in movies nowadays, they don't do that. They just like they're already sitting in a circle and they just hold hands. Maybe that's all you need. I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think when you have like a vampire and then like a kind of a mentally challenged psychic medium in the room, you're good. You're
Mm.
good.
Well, here's the thing though. Is she mentally challenged or is she just having trouble believing in her powers, right? Because if her powers are that she could hear thoughts and hear dead people, in people who've died in houses and stuff like that, is it an illness or is it a gift?
I would say that it's a gift, but her perception is that she's mentally challenged and
Mm.
the people around her think she's mentally challenged. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because they
Yeah.
obviously think something's wrong with her. And like she wouldn't have been in a nut house if people didn't think there was something wrong with her. So that's the challenge. But really, I think she's pretty cool. She's
Yeah.
definitely my favorite person of the group.
Yeah, by far, right? I mean, Woody doesn't. Woody's pretty okay, even though he was kind of coming on to Emily a little
Yeah.
strong. But I would say by far, yeah, Jessica's the most likable character in the movie. So then she attempts to call up any spirits that might have died in the house, and Jess gives it a try as well. She does hear a voice saying, "I'm here, Jessica. I'm here." And I'm wondering at this point if it wasn't telekinesis that Emily was using on her to kind of like continue to mess with her. I guess maybe that could be let's scare Jessica to death if we're thinking from Emily's point of view.
Yeah.
That might be a stretch, but
Because it's like really seemed like Emily didn't want to scare her to death. She wanted to make her a vampire.
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
But so not like really scare her. But I don't know. At some like there was at some point that she was like, "Don't you want to die? Just die." Like the voice in her head was,
Yeah.
"Die. I mean, be so easy. Just let go." So I don't know. Maybe she was trying to convince her to become a vampire, which would be dying. Yes.
Hmm.
I don't know. This is that shit. That title's getting deeper as we go. Now I'm like, well, hang on.
Yeah. So then she looks at a photo of a baby on the wall, and the voice in her head is a man's who says, "A toast to my bride and to all the bishops." And then we hear wedding bells. Then very slowly, the camera starts to pan, and then we hear moaning as if more like keening, right? Like moaning the loss of somebody. And then the clock struck 10, and this snapped Jess out of it. And then Jess and Duncan go off to bed. In their bedroom, she reads him the inscription from one of her gravestone etches. It tells the story of an African prince who was kidnapped and forced into slavery, but earned enough money to buy his freedom. And apparently, this is an actual gravestone that is at least until a couple years ago, in Connecticut still.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then she starts hanging the rest of the etchings on the walls as decoration. So downstairs, Woody attempts to seduce Emily, but she's not feeling it at the moment and instead wants to go for a walk. On the walk, we learn that Jessica was institutionalized for 6 months, and she just got out. I mean, Duncan spills all the tea. Like he's the main exposition point in this movie. It's Duncan. And he also says that, no, I'm sorry, not Duncan. I
Woody,
apologize,
Woody,
Woody. Yeah. Woody spills all the tea. He's the main exposition dump in this movie.
yeah, those bearded lips were flapping. Like, we just met you, but let me tell you all the sordid past of this poor woman, which that was a definitely to me indicated like they looked down upon Jessica because like why would you do that? Why would you just like throw that out to a complete stranger? Like, oh, she was in a nut house for 6 months. It's like that's none of your business. That's not you don't be telling that to Emily. That's crazy.
Yeah,
So it
that's a
just
HIPAA violation for sure.
yeah, totally HIPAA.
Woody goes on to say that Duncan spent all his money on the house and the farm. They need to sell stuff from the house for money. Woody also goes on to say that he might stick around after he helps Duncan get the farm up and running. One of the things that the director said about this movie was that another aspect that definitely came from me and that I've always loved about Jessica is that the picture was set on an apple farm. That's something you see in a lot of my films. It's something I've always come back to. When I was born, my parents bought an apple farm. I remember the shed full of equipment and watching my father spray the apples with pesticides. I didn't realize until the picture was done, but Jessica offered sort of a child's view of a visit to a scary farm. So I really just thought that was interesting that the director took a lot of, and he also says that a lot of the loneliness that he felt as a kid, he put into this movie as well. So yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting there.
Yeah, the apple picking was definitely a thing we did up in New England. But I especially liked the tractor with the spray, like obviously spraying pesticides because Woody was wearing a gas mask.
Mm.
And it's just kind of like, like okay. It made me think for a second, like, wait a second, like how many apples have I had when I went apple picking in Maine or whatever that were like covered in pesticides?
Yeah, and even later in the film, she goes to take one off of the branch, and Duncan's like, "No, don't do that. That's poison." It's like, okay,
Yeah, which
I
is kind of like, what's the point then? Like,
yeah,
what
I
are
would
you
I would
them?
assume at some point they throw them in a wash, right? Because even
Or like,
nowadays they throw like a wax on it, an edible wax on it to make it look all shiny and stuff. So I'm gonna say they gotta wash them, and I'm not gonna look it up. Facts don't matter. Don't tell me. Don't get on
no,
Twitter and tell me I don't care.
tequila cracks.
Yeah. Woody then attempts to kiss her again, and she says to slow down. She promises not to go away. So the next morning, they're all swimming in the lake and cleaning each other. This was so weird. I don't know if this is a New England thing,
Right?
but
No.
they're all in the lake and they all have they're like soaping and basically taking a shower, a bath in the lake, which I understand sometimes you have to, but each other was like they were rubbing each other down, and like Jessica was rubbing Woody down, which was really weird because while she's doing that, Duncan is rubbing Emily down, and when Jessica sees that, she when she sees that, like she like leaves the situation. So I wasn't quite sure what was going on there. Maybe it's just because she sees Woody as 100% a friend, whereas she knows that Duncan is attracted to Emily. I wasn't
Yeah.
quite sure what was going on there.
Yeah. It seemed like she wasn't like, she didn't think anything of like doing that to Woody, but like she could totally, like, oh God, there goes my husband again.
Yeah.
Cheater. Cheater.
Dirty cheater. Later, they're sunbathing, and Jess goes out for a swim while Emily goes inside to make lunch and to pack up her stuff. While swimming, she sees the body of a woman in a white dress underwater, which then reaches out and touches her, and then she hears it calling to her as well. And she screams and she runs back, or she attempts to swim back to shore, and the boys swim out to pull her out. She tells them what happened, and of course, as she said that, they didn't believe her, just like she said they weren't going to. And then once she gets to shore, we see the girl in the dress that we saw earlier. So, what did you think of this scene so far? Because I'm getting frustrated about the fact that they're not believing her.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, you kind of expect that's the way they're going to act to her by now. Like, you kind of get that. But I was like mostly at this point in the movie super concerned about Emily So like I find myself thinking about Emily a lot because I was like, what is she up to? What is this girl up to? And this is before we see the picture. This is before like we know really what she's up to.
Mm,
So I was just kind of like more concerned, like, oh no, I hope like Duncan doesn't cheat on Jessica with her because Jessica can't handle the stress right now.
yeah.
Oh, but yeah. And then like the lady in the water, is that the same lady that's on the shore? The blonde girl who's like
Mm,
beckoning her, is that the same lady? Is that different? What is that girl trying to say? Like, they never really actually explain that either at any point in the movie, like what the blonde girl's up like, who are you? What are you doing? Like
yeah.
you never really kind of get the, or maybe I missed it, but I don't think you ever kind of get the explanation of what that was.
No, they don't really ever explain it. So
But I
yeah, I'm
think
there
she
right
was
there.
alive. Like she wasn't a ghost.
Right, she was definitely alive. Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely alive.
And so that's what I was. So I watched this with my wife, and she's watched a lot of horror movies with me, and I tend to watch a lot of older movies. And she's like, "I'm sick of the fragile woman, the woman who's like always fainting or like under stress and needs the help of a man, and that sort of thing, like to come help her." And I'm like, "Yeah, I agree with you, man. It gets kind of annoying, like." She does end up surviving. I mean, obviously, we see that at the very beginning of this, but the way in which they do it is just a little bit annoying, but still, like, I love the character a lot. So that's what you get when you watch older movies.
Oh yeah.
Back inside, lunch is I guess I have no fucking idea what this red mass of what looks to be uncooked ground meat actually is, but they're spreading it on lettuce. Is this a Connecticut thing? Is this a
Again,
Northeast
no.
thing?
I don't know what this guy is doing who wrote this movie. It's just like, what is that? I don't know.
Yeah, and like so Emily made it. So oh fuck.
So was it like raw meat
Raw
then?
meat, or like maybe is there something called like tartare, which is like really,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, raw meat. Yeah.
So maybe that's what it is. And also she took her steak bloody.
Mm.
Huh, I didn't realize that.
She can eat. She just has to eat really bloody, meaty things.
Right, yeah. Okay. I see that.
Different kind of vampire.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This was reminding me very much of like George Romero's Martin.
Mhm.
Have you ever had a chance to see that one?
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. So like where you never, well, in that one it's more the whole movie is trying to decide whether or not he's a vampire, whereas this one, like, you don't know almost throughout the whole movie that she's a vampire up until the very end. But going back, you're like picking up on things. So yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So then Duncan then announces that if they want to continue to eat food, they need to look around the house for stuff to sell. And Jess goes upstairs to the attic to find some stuff, which she does: an old table, a chair, odds and ends. Inside an old chest, she finds a knife, which appears to be well taken care of, and a dress, which she eventually tries on. Another of the items is a silver framed portrait of the Bishop family: father, mother, and daughter Abigail. As they're loading up their finds, Emily protests them selling the portrait, saying, "These are people with history. You can't just sell it." But Duncan insists, which I thought, again, on the second watch, I didn't pick up the fact that she was like, "You can't sell this. This is my picture, bitch."
Mhm. Mhm. And of course, Duncan would anyway, because douchebag Duncan.
Yeah. So then, before they leave town, Jess and Duncan decide to ask Emily to stay for good because it's becoming obvious that Woody is attracted to her and Jessica doesn't mind having Emily around. So on the way to town, Jess asks Duncan if he finds Emily attractive, and he says yes, which bothers her a bit. But again, they don't talk about it. In town, Jess buys some eggs from the local egg farmer, who is very rude to her. Then Duncan goes to ask an older man if he knows of a spot where they can sell furniture, and the man says that if there was a place, he certainly wouldn't tell him. And I'm thinking, what an asshole, you know?
Mhm.
When they're exiting the store, the men in town, all of whom are bandaged in some way or another, are very hostile towards them. They kind of surround Duncan. One slaps him in the back of the head, and then they also surround Jessica. And then she notices that they have scratched off the peace and love painting on their car. It's like
Yeah.
these damn street toughs.
Yeah, that was really funny. They were just super creepy though. And it's like they just wiped off the hippie stuff. Just
Yeah.
damn hippies.
Well, like I've never been to the Northeast. I've never been to Connecticut, and if I go, am I gonna have to worry about roaming senior citizen street tough gangs? Is this what's
If
in store for me
you
if I go there?
encounter them, they will look exactly like the ones in Let's Scare Jessica to Death. They'll be about 60 to 70 years old, half crippled, and yeah, probably racist. So I would just
Okay,
run.
okay. Maybe no apple picking then for me. I'm good here.
No,
I'll stay here.
I wouldn't apple pick anymore, but with the pesticide reveal that we've got in this movie anyway. So I mean,
Yeah, that's
you
true.
want like old redneck hippie haters and pesticides, then go to Connecticut.
So then we meet Sam Dorker, an ex New Yorker and antique dealer. He offers them $250 for everything, including the frame, although he says he's hesitant to buy anything from the old Bishop place. He then tells them the story of how 20-year-old Abigail Bishop drowned in 1880 just before her wedding day. Legend says that she's still alive, roving the island as a vampire. Jessica finds the story fascinating, but Duncan just wants to take the money and go home. Later in the car, Jess says that Duncan was very rude by cutting off Mr. Dorker, and she says that he's making her sick by worrying about her so much. We then see Dorker close up the shop and go swimming. He's forever known as Dorker now, no Mr.
Oh
Dorker.
yeah, yeah. That was weird too that she was looking at the lamp, the Flowers of Evil
Hmm.
lamp in Dorker's store. Dorker store. The lamp in Dorker store.
Yeah.
And she was just like, oh, they're not like really evil. They're just kind of like, whatever she said, misunderstood or something like that.
Yeah. Everything was really expensive in that store, and so I'm sure they couldn't afford that
Hmm.
that lamp, but it looked kind of cool. I didn't know what it was, but that looked kind of cool. So then, after returning to the farm, Jessica and Duncan go for a walk around their property, and Emily is sitting on the front porch playing her lute, and Woody is out spraying the apple trees. Jessica finds a mole, and Duncan offers to take it back to the house and put it in a jar, while Jessica stays in the graveyard to do some more grave rubbings.
Yeah, mole my ass. That was a rat.
Okay,
No
was it?
building said that. Like, why wouldn't you just? I actually said that to my partner when I was watching. I was like, why don't they just say it's a rat? Because it's clearly a rat. It's no mole. It's a rat. So just say it's a rat. Like, I hate it when people do that in movies. Like, they pretend it's something it's not. And it's just like, or like somebody changes their accent, right? You
Mm.
hire an Australian actor and you make him have an American accent. Well, the character could have been Australian. Like, who cares? Just make him Australian. So I was kind of pissed off. I'm like, why do they call that rat a mole?
It's they created the problem, right? It's really
Mm-hmm.
silly. You're
Mm-hmm.
right. They could have just been a rat.
That annoys me.
And the thing about Jessica is she's a creepy girl. She's a creepy chick. She would have liked the rat, you know?
Oh no, yeah, she totally would have liked the rat. Like, I
Yeah.
just don't get why it has to be a mole. And they're like, oh yeah, he's all blind, and like this rat clearly has clear eyes.
Yeah, I saw that.
You're
I was
like,
like, okay.
it's just like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
Oh well.
So then we then see Dorker on the lake in a rowboat fishing. And as he's drawing in the reel, we see the same body underneath the water that Jessica saw. And then it reaches up slowly, and then the scene switches. And Jess is just about to do a rubbing of Abigail Bishop's grave when she notices the blonde girl beckoning her to follow. The girl leads Jessica to a cliff, at the bottom of which lies Dorker, dead and bloodied. And she screams. By the time Jessica finds Duncan, however, the body is gone. Did she really see it? The look on Duncan's face says that he thinks Jessica is going through it again. But just then, Jessica notices the blonde girl standing on the cliff above them, and Duncan sees her too, and he gives chase. He catches her, but when Jessica tries to ask questions, the girl is either mute or won't talk, and Duncan still seems to not believe her. Then suddenly, Emily walks up, and the girl runs off.
Yeah, that girl was not having Emily. Like, she knows all about Emily, right? So I guess that's what she was probably trying to warn Jessica about. It's like, Emily's a vampire, bitch! Run!
Yeah, and so we just the scene before this, we just got the first mention of vampire. When Dorker brought that up, did that ring any bells in you? Did that sound any
That
alarms?
was when I clicked. Like, I was like, oh, it's a vampire movie.
Hmm.
Because I was like, why would they? In old movies like that, they don't say stuff just for like, they say it for a reason.
Hmm.
Because like they tended to, like I said, I'm old, so I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and it was very much like people didn't trust the audience to figure it out, so it was spoon fed to you. So like when there's little hints like that, that's usually a good indication that if they say it, believe them. So when he's like, "Oh yeah, legend has it that she's a vampire," it's like, well, then she's probably a vampire.
Yeah.
Like somebody yelling at you when you're going to Camp Crystal Lake, "The place is cursed. You're all gonna die. It's cursed, and you're all gonna die." Like, we're not fucking around here. They
It's
tell you,
got a death curse.
the death curse.
Yes. So that evening at dinner, it's obvious even to Woody that Duncan and Emily have eyes for each other. When he's the only one to laugh at her dumbass joke, which made no fucking sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Jess says to herself, he wants her. Then she says, no one will ever believe me again. Did it happen? Did it happen? And then she hears Emily's voice saying, Duncan's mine now. Again, is this Emily fucking with her?
Yeah,
Yeah, right? Is that what you think?
yeah,
Which is so fucked up, man. Like, that's so cruel.
right. And that's like what we were talking about earlier. Like, maybe what the title is saying is she's just trying to break her down so that she will want to be a vampire. Like, she just like wants her to die. Like, she wants her to want to die, I guess.
Yeah.
And then maybe too, that's like, I don't know, perhaps that's part of it, is that like she is what do they call that when like vampires hypnotize you like into like doing they give you like I forget what it's called. But in like True Blood they called it something. Like they do a glimmer on you or something on
Okay.
you. And like maybe that's part of the deal. Like maybe these people have to kind of want to do it, or like cuz she's kind of hypnotized Woody, like she's enthralled him. Then she's like, is Duncan really a douchebag? Is he really wanting to cheat on Jessica, or is he hypnotized by Emily into wanting? Both of those
Okay.
guys want her. Then did poor Dorker, did she do the same thing to him? And that's how he became like, what of all the guys in town? You don't see any other women
Yeah, that's
other than
true.
the blonde girl, and she's alive until the end of the movie. So it's like, do you have to submit to her or have some sort of death wish, or does she put the whammy jammy on your mind?
The glamour.
The glamour, that's it. Was she glamoring them?
Okay.
I'm like, glimmer, glitter. I was
I've
like,
never seen True Blood. I just looked it up right now. So,
what?
but that's a great point. Like that there are no other women, and yeah, I don't know. I think it might be an easy excuse for Duncan to say I had no choice. I was under her spell, but
Yeah.
I think as soon as he saw her, he was kind of smitten. You know.
Mm. Yeah, maybe he's just gross.
Yeah, exactly. So then I love Woody's face after the joke. He's not smiling. He didn't think it was funny. In fact, he's angry. He's like, "What the fuck are you laughing at?" You know?
Mm.
So then Jessica decides to go to bed early, checking on her pet, quote unquote, mole before she does. Woody then pointedly tells Duncan to take care of his wife as
I
he
love
goes off to
that.
bed.
Yeah, I loved that. I was like, you tell him, Woody.
Yeah, like we all see it. You're not you're very obvious, you know.
Yeah, go take care of your wife, asshole. It didn't phase Emily at all. She was just like, yeah, whatever. I'm still gonna seduce him with
And
my glam.
what I like about Woody, and it doesn't feel like he's like, "Hey, man, that's my girl." Like, it's more of a like being protective over Jess. Like, "Hey, man, your wife is right here. She needs you, and you're over here like macking on this other chick. Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah, he definitely seemed like he was just grossed out by Duncan's behavior. Like he was just
Yeah.
like,
So then, reluctantly, Duncan goes up to their bedroom after like exchanging some very like sexy looks with Emily. In the bedroom, instead of taking care of his wife, however, he tells Jessica that she needs to return to New York to see her doctor again. And Jess insists that they don't have the money, but Duncan is even more insistent that they will do whatever they have to do to find the money because he just can't take it anymore. I'm like, what a fucking asshole. I'm sorry that it's been so hard on you, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no shit.
what a dick. Like, her mental breakdown has been hard on you, and you can't take it anymore.
Yeah, he's gross. Douchebag.
So then she tells him to leave her then. And when she becomes upset, he yells at her to be quiet because the others will hear. And weeping, she says, who cares if they'll hear? You know, it's a heartbreaking moment. Like, she's just looking for some tenderness. Instead, he's yelling at her and saying, stop showing your emotions. You know, you need to swallow that, like, be a man sort of thing. It's like, he's being a real dick right now.
Yeah, and then like the others might hear. I'm like, what is this? A Till Tuesday music video? Like, oh my god, like who cares? I like think he was more upset. Like she'll hear, right? Or like
Mm,
he just got called out by Woody, right? So he doesn't want Woody to hear because Woody will be like, that son of a bitch. What is he saying to her? And then he doesn't want Emily to hear because Emily might change her mind to be like, oh, married man, you know. I think it's just completely selfish thing to say. I felt so bad for Jessica. She is
yeah.
just like she's so trapped and vulnerable, and you're just kind of like, oh,
Yeah, I feel the same. I'm like, my heart is breaking for her because she can't catch a break anywhere, you know? She's seeing what she thinks are visions. She's hearing voices. A woman is like coming on to her husband and she has to pretend like she doesn't care. And then her husband, the one person that should be able to reach out to, isn't being there for her. So then Jessica, so up to this point though, it's been like a drama, right? A psychological drama.
yeah,
And it's been like this slow build of dread, which I think was handled masterfully.
yeah. The first blood we saw besides the steak was Dorker.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So then Jessica tells Duncan that she wants to sleep apart tonight, but Duncan offers to sleep on the couch where he, of course, will have easy access to Emily.
Ugh, ugh, such a douchebag.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, but I mean, he could still been under the like influence. Like he could have been just like I'm so drawn to her. But I'm, you know what, Duncan? I'm not gonna give you a break. I am going to just throw you right under the fucking cheating bus and say that you're just a fucking douchebag.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are we, a Duncan apologist podcast now?
No, I was trying to bring you there. I was gonna bring you into Mordor, but we'll go right back into the Shire now. And I'll say that he's just a dick.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So while he sleeps on the couch, we see someone open the mole's container, which they just kept the mole in a glass container. And I was like, did they have
How
enough
does it breathe?
air? Yeah.
I know, I thought the same thing. You son of a bitch. It's got to be Duncan put the mole in there.
I wouldn't put it past them. So then they reach in with a knife and and start stabbing the mole and you start to hear it scream. I'm so thankful that we don't see this. We're in the 70s. I was scared. I was like, oh man, please don't show it. And they didn't show it. And in fact, funnily enough, the knife that they used didn't have any blood. We were able to see the knife and there was no blood in it. I was like, okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. That's fine with me.
I mean, if you're gonna kill a mole, a rat mole, good. Yeah, we don't want to see it.
Yeah. So later in the night, to the shock of absolutely no one, Emily visits him and he is easily seduced by her. The next morning, Jessica finds the little mole slash rat has been repeatedly stabbed to death. Jessica denies doing it, and I feel so bad for her here. Like she's really going through it emotionally. She's like, I know you guys think I did it, but I didn't do it. And like she's grabbing onto her head and like pulling her hair. And it's like, man, I
No,
feel
I
for
was
her
like,
so
why
much.
would they think she did it? Like, that sucks that she goes there immediately and she's just like, oh, I know you're gonna think I killed this thing, and it's like, that's sad. I mean, that's just a terrible way to think about yourself. Is that like people would look at you that way? Hmm.
But the thing is that she says it and nobody stops her. Nobody's like, no, 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 no. We don't think you did it, honey. Nobody says that. And
Yeah.
so maybe she was just reaching out for some comfort to be like, for somebody to say that. Kind of like when you say, "Oh, I'm so ugly," and somebody says, "Oh no, you're beautiful," whatever, and that sort of thing. But nobody's so if you say that to a group of friends and nobody's like, "No, no, no, you're really pretty or you're really handsome," you're like, "Oh fuck, I guess I am ugly," you know. This was not from personal experience, I swear. So then Duncan decides that it's time to get help for her, and he drives into town to search for a phone. I think imagine having to drive to look for a phone. Like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, yeah, I guess if you don't have, I mean, clearly they don't have a bathroom
Or
or
running
a
water, yeah.
shower. Yeah,
Yeah.
running water because they're in a lake scrubbing each other down and they don't have a phone. So that sucks.
Yeah.
But I remember having to go, like, if your phone went out when I was a kid, we had to go find a payphone. It was like the weird, yeah, I was always on payphones when I was a kid.
Yeah, same. I
Hmm.
I, I never got to get into a phone booth, but I did get the payphones, and I remember the whole urban legend about being careful to reach in there into the coin slot because the needle might be in there and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah,
and
I
how
heard that too.
and all the dirty and filthy like phone receivers. You like wipe it on your shirt before you put it up to your face.
Yeah, because that helps.
I mean, I for one am kind of glad we don't have to use payphones anymore, but like that was certainly an era, right?
Oh yeah, and then you got cut off all the time because you ran out of change, and yeah, it was awesome.
Do you remember? I know we're a bit olding out here, but do you remember the commercial for 1-800-Collect where it's like these people just had a baby and they don't have the money for a full collect call or whatever, and so you know how you would say your name, and so he goes, "Bob, we had a baby eats a boy."
Oh yeah,
Do you
we had
remember
a
that?
baby. It's a boy.
And so the grandparents pick up and they're like, "Will you collect a call from blah 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 blah?" And he just hangs up, and the mom's like, "Well, who was it?" "It's Bob. They had a baby. It's a boy." It's like,
Yeah,
what
I
a
remember that.
what an era! What a time to be alive!
Oh, good times. Yeah, now collect calls are only from jail, I think. So
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what I would do if I got a collect call. I'd be like, "What? Wait, I have a prepaid cell phone. What do you want? What do you mean a collect call? How are you going to bill me for this?"
yeah, everybody would just go fuck no and hang up. Like nobody would accept charges.
Yeah.
Nobody.
So then before he leaves, Jess sees Emily lean into the car and kiss Duncan, which is a major betrayal.
Mhm.
While he's gone, Jessica goes up to the attic where she is surprised to come face to face with the silver framed portrait of the Bishop family that they had sold just yesterday to Sam Dorker. So, do you think that the only reason Dorker died was because he bought that portrait?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I think that was because she warned him. She warned Duncan,
Yeah.
like about it, and then like he said, "Well, I don't feel comfortable buying anything from the Bishop place,"
Hmm.
and then he did. So
That's
it's
so
like
messed up. That's messed up.
that's a yeah, that was a big betrayal on his part for her.
Yeah.
But he, yeah,
But
that
do you
other
think he was a sorry to interrupt you. Do you think that he was a vampire already and he shouldn't have bought it and that's why she killed him? Or do you think he was still human and she killed him just because he bought that?
I don't think anybody in the town was like other than that blonde girl. I think she had gotten everybody, right? So like I think he might have already been a vampire and that was like a betrayal, kind of like a Renfield moment, where Dracula's
Mm,
like, "You betrayed me." Ha ha, and maybe that was a big betrayal and that he
okay.
should have done that, but
So the reason why I thought he wasn't is because they had to drive they drove out a bit further out of town to
well,
go to the
that's
antique.
true. He wasn't like up in the town. That's right. So maybe
Yeah.
he was human.
Yeah, and then later on they'll make a point of showing his neck to show that he had the
Mhm.
the marking or whatever. So, but it could be either one. We don't know. And I
Yeah,
like that they kind of leave it up. They leave a lot of stuff up. Like you're saying, they don't spoon feed things to you.
right.
So then she also hears Emily's voice saying over and over, "I'm here." And she holds her head as she seems to be in great distress. When she takes a look at the three figures in the portrait, she's astounded to see how closely Abigail Bishop resembles Emily. Is it possible that they're the same person? Suddenly, Emily appears approaching very slowly. Back in town, Duncan walks into a building and all the men follow him. And that's the last part. That's all we see. But I'm assuming, see, I thought that she got him last night when they were having sex. But I think it actually happened here. Is that what you
Mm.
took from it?
I thought it was when they were having sex.
Really? So what do
Yeah.
you think happens here when he goes into the building and all the men follow him?
I think he had already been one.
So just like a vampire meeting or something?
Yeah, like that's why they were all like she's like beckoning all of her minions, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Manions.
Nice, nice. Patent pending. Don't take that. So back in the attic, Jessica tries to keep her cool while Emily denies that she is Abigail. All the while, she is stroking Jessica's feverish face. But Jessica says, no, no, it's in the eyes. And Emily has very, very striking blue eyes, which you can see. I guess she doesn't know it's a color, right? Because it wouldn't have been a color photo.
Yeah, but you could tell that she's got like bright eyes in the photo.
Right, right. Then she hears Emily telling her to look into her eyes. Finally, out of a desire to get safely out of the attic, Jessica agrees to go with Emily for a cool swim in the lake, even though she says she's afraid of the water after being grabbed at the other day. Emily says, if you don't want to swim, you can just sit at the end of the pier. And I think, right, nothing bad's going to come from this at all. Right? So then she continues to hear Emily's voice in her head telling her to follow her. As the two women sit at the end of the dock, Emily rubs suntan lotion on Jessica, even after Jess insists that she's had enough. Suddenly, Emily pushes Jessica into the water and jumps in after her. And I feel like we've all done this with like friends and family members, like, throwing them in the water and just jumping around. But Jessica made it clear that she did not want to go in the water and all at all. And so like I felt right away, well, I felt she felt unsafe in the attic, but I felt like she was really in a lot of danger here.
Yeah, and maybe yeah, she's trying to scare her to death. So she's like, "You bitch, you gonna be scared because guess what? I'm also in the lake." Because this is when we find out, aha, like that's actually her in the lake. Like that's not. This whole scene was pretty awesome. I thought this whole lake scene because this is my favorite part of the movie
Okay. Why is that?
because Emily was just so blatantly mean. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was like, oh, her true colors finally came out, and then it's like you really know something's up with Emily. Like Emily is not of this world
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the scene, Jessica's all by herself and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
And she's just looking around at this empty lake, like, oh, was this all in my head? But you know damn well it wasn't. I mean, other people are seeing Emily. Emily's not like she's there. She's like physically there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, oh, she could just disappear like that. Then she has to be. She has to be a vampire.
Yes.
So that's like the big like, oh, Emily's fucking with her.
Well, it was kind of funny because like it felt, well, we'll get to there in a second, but so Jess begs for her to leave her alone. Jess insisting that she's okay, but please just leave her alone. And you can tell that Jessica is trying to keep it together. Like she doesn't want to go off on this lady. She doesn't want to, like, she's at her breaking point here. Please, please, please leave me alone. And she just won't do it. Finally, Jessica panics and Emily apologizes for scaring her when she says all she wanted to do was have a little fun. And then Jessica wades toward the shore and looks back to see that Emily has disappeared and hears Emily's voice say, "Nobody's here," which, like you were saying earlier. And this kind of was bringing me a little bit, just a very small, like, panic, like in a shark movie when the shark hasn't surfaced yet, you know? And it's just about to, and you're like, fuck, where's it going to happen? This is what it felt like. Like Emily was playing with her, like a bit like a predator.
Yeah, that was really pretty messed up. Especially when like Emily knows what Jessica's perceived problem is that like nobody believes her and like she sees things that aren't there. And for her to just do that to her, like, is just such a big fuck you to Jessica. Like, I'm going to do exactly what everybody, like, I'm just going to disappear and make you think you're crazy. She gaslit her. Like, she totally gaslit Jessica in that moment.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And then she sees her reddish hair bobbing to the surface. When a pale white arm grabs her and tries to pull her underwater, Jessica fights to break loose and return to shore. She looks back at the water and watches Emily, pale and dressed in Abigail's wedding gown, rising slowly from the water and walking towards her, all the while silently saying, "Stay, Jessica, stay. You're home now. Follow me," as the beating of the drums gets quicker and quicker. This looks amazing. This looks so fucking cool. Like you were saying, this is a great, great scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Her running in her bathing suit, like, just like full tilt running, like through the field. And then she goes by that, I don't even know, those spokey wheel things, those like big wheels with like the spikes coming out of it
Yes.
that she runs towards. And it's like, I thought she was going to hit him. I'm like, oh, don't hit him, don't hit him.
Oof.
Because I thought she was going to like cut herself or something. But I just don't know, like, that was just kind of a neat effect they used. Because those wheel spiky things come up a couple times. Like they're in a scene a couple times.
Yeah. When Emily reaches for Jessica and tries to bite her neck, Jessica takes action. She runs back to the house, locks herself in her room, and waits for Duncan to return. This again is one of those things where it's kind of frustrating. Like I was saying earlier, she has to lock herself in the room and wait for a man to come save her.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't end up happening, but like it's kind of. I wish she would have been able to put up some sort of fight against her.
Yeah, and I swear I noticed some blood on her too, like when she was running back.
Okay, I didn't notice
And
that.
I'd have to watch it again, but I swear there was like a little blood on her or something. And
Yeah.
she, if which made me think, like, at the end, like, did she get her? Like,
Mm.
is she a vampire? She gonna
Perhaps
turn
like
into
she was running through some brambles or something.
the spiky spoke thing? Maybe
Yeah.
got her. Finally got her. That was the villain all along. That wheelie spoke thing.
Yeah.
The quiet villain of the movie.
What do you have to get when you cut yourself with like a rusty nail? You have to get a yeah. So like the real villain is like tetanus.
Yeah. Yes, this
So
is a commentary on the status of tetanus in 1971.
and the American medical system as well.
Yes.
You know the
Eek.
access to care in rural America.
Yeah. Let's medicate Jessica to death.
So then hours pass, during which Jessica can hear Emily's voice whispering to her, "I'm still here. I won't go away. You can't get rid of me. You can't get rid of me. I'm in your blood. What do you have to live for? You'll never get better. You want to die." It's like, fuck, man. Can you imagine like hearing that over and over and over in your head for hours? It's like torturous. It's like cruel torture that she's doing to her.
Yeah, she's like trying to break her down, but like, what's up with the "I'm in your blood" comment if she didn't get bitten?
Hmm.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Hmm? Is Jessica some long lost bishop or in their blood relative somehow? No. But did Jessica nick her? Nick her in the neck? Maybe. Because, like,
Yeah.
that was a weird comment. "I'm in your blood." Huh.
It could be also just like her trying to get in her head. Like we don't know. Like, but
Yeah.
yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah,
Kind of a
that's a,
bitch.
because later in the movie, at the very end, in fact, like we see that she does actually cut her, and so I don't think it's the fact of like cutting. So Jessica cuts her victims. No, not Jessica. I'm sorry. Emily cuts her victims with a knife. So it's
Yeah.
obvious that she doesn't have fangs. So she's not like a traditional vampire that we're used to in our lore. But then, so I don't think it's the fact of getting cut with a knife that turns you to vampire, but it's sucking. And at the end, we see, I believe it. We'll get to it, but I believe she's sucked down. So who knows? She
Hmm.
could be in the rowboat at the end, and she's a vampire. So
Maybe.
yeah. So then come 5 p.m. and Duncan still hasn't returned. So Jessica changes out of her swimming suit and very slowly, too slowly for me, walks out of the house. As she does, she looks in the cello case and she noticed that it's empty. She then hitches a ride into town, making sure the truck driver didn't have any dressings on him or any cuts on his neck.
Yeah, from what she could see.
Exactly. So then, while Jessica is on her way to town, Woody returns from working in the fields to find that the only one at home is Emily. She meets him at the top of the stairs in her white wedding dress, and she walks slowly and very coquettishly down the stairs, almost like flirting with him. And he asks where Jessica is, and eventually she tells him that Jessica walked to town to find Duncan. And although Woody doesn't like how Emily has been playing Duncan, he readily submits when she comes on to him, and he gets a bite in the neck for his reward. So now we know that Jessica is truly on her own at this point. Back in town, the truck driver drops her off, and we notice that he had a cut on his left cheek, the one that Jessica wasn't able to see. So she does see Duncan's car and asks about his whereabouts, but none of the men will admit to having seen him. Jessica notices that every man has cuts on his body and backs away, straight into the arms of Dorker. Now totally confused about her own sanity, she runs back towards the farm. As she was running, she was thinking of the girl in the dress and how she's just really realizing now that she was warning her. When she could run no more, she collapses on the ground and lies there until it turns dark and she hears Duncan calling her name. Again, damsel in distress can't do anything except fall on the ground and wait for a man to save her.
Yeah, that's and especially Duncan. Like, ugh, you wait for
Yeah,
that sister. No.
anybody but Duncan.
And I was also kind of like I was hoping the truck driver was going to do something nefarious, or, like I was just kind of like, it was such a, I mean, nowadays, homegirls ain't getting in no truck with some strange guy, okay? But like,
Right.
he could have at least turned to her and been like, "Tell him Large Marge sent ya," or something. Like, do something, give us a line.
Yeah.
That was such a boring scene. Like, just cut, whatever. Just cut to the damn town. Like, that truck driver was such a waste. I mean, until you saw the side of his face, but he didn't do anything. Like, he was just like completely polite and nice.
Yeah. At least he could have like CB radioed and say she's there. Or I just dropped her off or something like that, you know?
Yeah. He's like just a big, like, yeah, useless vampire. He's like the throwaway vampire of the movie.
Yeah. Duncan drives her the rest of the way home and they go upstairs to bed. As they begin to kiss, Jessica notices the cut on Duncan's neck and she tries to convince herself that it's only in her mind. But then she sees Emily in the room with them, brandishing the knife from the old trunk in the attic. And she approaches her and cuts her neck, and Emily starts to drink from it. So, this is what I was saying. Like, it looks like she drank from her neck, but like she was so paralyzed with fear. And also, she's been gaslit into believing that what she's seeing is wrong. And so, even though everything in her body, in her being, was telling her that she was in danger, she said, "No, no, no, that can't be the case." And it allows Emily to cut her like this.
Yeah, I mean, but oh, sorry, there's my
No
dog and the
worries.
cat are playing right now. But I mean, first thing you're not going to be prone to believing people are like, there's like a coven of vampires in this town. I mean, that's not like your first. I mean, maybe because we're into horror movies and stuff, we go,
Uh-huh.
fuck vampires, shit. And then we get out of there.
That's
But like
always my
your
first thing.
regular person, especially in the early 70s, probably wouldn't jump to that conclusion. So maybe she really was like, not, she didn't get it. And
Yeah.
especially given the fact that she's prone to like hallucinations or what people think are hallucinations. She just doesn't want to believe that this is happening. And that's got
Yeah.
to be messed up because like we know she's a vulnerable person and she's like definitely acts like the damsel in distress. So she's obviously thinking she needs people around her to protect her and stuff. And then now like those people are all vampires and you're alone and like now what? She doesn't have a car. She probably doesn't even know how to drive a car.
Yeah.
So she's probably like, oh shit.
And we don't know if this is a. Did you take it that it was an island, or was there just no bridge connecting them from the lake?
I think it was an island,
Okay, so she's stuck on this island by
which would
herself.
make sense. Like that's why maybe that the ferryman is like keeping the vampires. I mean, because he was one of them,
Mm.
but it's like maybe he's keeping the vampires there, and just like it
Isn't it
makes
vampire lore that vampires can't cross bodies of water?
well, it seems like
Oh, but he does every day, right? But he's a
yeah, he does, but it's like if they were to cross the over to the mainland, they would have done it by now, right? Like, wouldn't you think that? I mean,
yeah.
I have so many questions because I'm like, what are you guys eating then? Are you just
Also,
waiting for a tourist to like stop by and like, what are you guys feeding on? Like, they don't seem very vampire-y vampires.
yeah, and also, are they also vampires, or are they just Emily's food source?
Don't know, man.
Or he did say that they looked like Duncan did say earlier that they looked like leftovers from the Civil War. Are
Maybe
these
they
has she kept
were.
them alive? Like, are they vampires and they were just old when she turned them?
Ah, they were vampires left over from the Civil War.
Yeah.
Gotta be what it is. I don't know. Well, they seem pretty useless if they're minions. Like what is that? They're doing nothing. Like the
Right.
guy had her in his truck, he did nothing. And then like the nefarious old geeks from the Civil War, like they're just like her fairies and like they're surrounding, but they don't do anything. Like nobody
Yeah.
does anything.
They're just like bitchy to outsiders.
They're just bitchy to outsiders.
So, and then speaking of them, the old men from the town are there as well, and they kind of like are converging onto
That,
Jessica.
yeah, that made me uncomfortable. I didn't like that.
Yeah. So then Jessica leaps from the bed and runs outside, knocking over Duncan's cello case to see the bloody body of the mute girl come tumbling out. And so Jessica keeps on running. Along the way, she sees Woody's sprayer, but when she gets closer, she sees Woody lying on the seat, his neck cut, and he's bloody. So, what was the point of putting him back onto this machine? Like, this was just kind of like how Michael Myers sets up scenes, like what after he kills people. Is this what
Yeah,
they're doing here?
that's what I thought. It was just like a freak out scene.
Yeah. So then she keeps on running. Around daybreak, she makes it to the ferry and tries to board. But the ferryman, who himself has a cut on his neck, like you were saying, he tells her the ferry isn't running for you. So then Jessica jumps into a nearby rowboat and begins paddling out into the lake. Suddenly, she sees a hand reach into the boat from the water. She stabs the person in the back several times with a long pick. As the body floats away, pale and bloody, we see that it is in fact Duncan. Back on the shore, Emily/Abigail and the men from town can be seen watching her. Then the movie is circular and we get the beginning scene again. I sit here and I can't believe that it happened, Jessica says to herself. And yet I have to believe it. Nightmares or dreams, madness or sanity. I don't know which is which. Emily and her crew walk away slowly, Emily looking sad that Jessica got away. Then the credits roll over a serene piece of music, and Emily falls asleep in the boat. The end. Very reminiscent of the ending of Friday the 13th, Part 1.
Yeah, I was like waiting for a little baby Abigail to reach out and grab her or something.
Yeah.
I know.
This is a full decade before that movie came out as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So,
We didn't know the end jump scare thing. That wasn't a thing yet.
yeah. So that's Let's Scare Jessica to Death. So, Susan, what did you think of the movie?
Well, first of all, we overlooked one of the parts that disturbed me the most, which
Okay.
is when Woody was on the tractor at the end and she ran through the pesticides trying to like get his
Mm,
attention. She's like, Woody, Woody, and she's like running through these like full tilt pesticide fountains coming out of this tractor.
that's true.
So
That
then at the end of it, it's like, okay, if you're not a vampire, you're gonna die from exposure to like what can only be some like meta dioxins or something. There's like something bad that got into that girl's system. And
Yeah,
she's just
definitely.
running through like doody doo, no big deal.
Like if she survived, she didn't survive for much longer. She had a rough life afterwards.
No, yeah, that was it's all downhill for Jessica. And it's like, yeah, you know that shit. Pesticides back in the 70s, they didn't care. They sprayed
Mhm.
anything all over the place. They didn't care.
Agent Orange and everything.
Yes, but other than that fact, I seem this useless part of it that I just latched onto for some reason. I actually enjoyed the movie. I wouldn't say this is high on my list of favorites. It was a little bit too slow for me, and
Mhm.
I think like the vampires, the bad guys just didn't do much of anything. Like other than Emily,
Emily
nobody
handled
did really
everything.
much of anything. So it was just
Yeah.
kind of like, okay.
Yes, very slow burn. Very, very slow burn. Yeah. So now I guess we could talk about it. Do you feel like, because we, as we saw the very end scene when they're in bed and Emily cuts her and then goes in, like she's sucking on her neck. So is she now a vampire?
I thought she was. I thought she was, and I thought that was kind of like the ending was like, okay, she's gonna get away, but like then what? Like she's getting off the island. She's got no ferrymen to stop her or anything like that. She's getting off the island.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make sense. And Emily, I don't know, like what Emily's reaction to it is because she looks like you said she looks disappointed or like is she disappointed or is she like oh she's going off to colonize the rest of the world? I don't know that this movie's that deep, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think it is a cool scene though. It's a cool shot of Emily on the bank of the lake and just looking like disappointed or whatever, just looking out at Jessica as she's floating away, no, paddling away. Like I thought that was a really really nice scene, a really cool shot.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, like they don't make it clear, and I like that. I really enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, there was a lot of ambiguity going on in that movie, but yeah, I do like that stuff. I like when they're not telling you exactly everything you're supposed to get out of the movie, like verbatim. You're just kind of left to go, huh, all right. And, some things I didn't notice, like until we talked about it, like the meat on the thing that like when Emily made lunch, the meat stuff that she was serving or
Mhm.
like the blood in the steak, like those were things I was like focusing on at the time that I'm like, oh, so slightly better than I thought after we talked about it, I think.
Yeah, like I said, this is definitely a movie that rewards a second viewing. I don't know if there's much more on the bone, so to say, after that, but still really interesting for a first time director. This was really really good, and the writer as well. I've never read Carmilla. Have you?
Yeah, I read it in high school. They
Or
made me
what
read it, which is
did?
so weird.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I mean, that's just that's was it Connecticut or New England that you were in? You said
Yeah.
in New England. Okay, that's I. They didn't make us read that.
I'm like, oh, you kind of androgynously gay vampire woman book. Let's read it. It's like, okay. I told you, they didn't give a shit back then. You just did whatever. You didn't even care. I read the Holy Bible in high school.
Which
And
is
I did not go to a Catholic school or anything. This was a public
mhm.
school in Braintree, Massachusetts. And the advanced placement classes, we read the Bible as a myth. We read it as a myth.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great to
So we
hear.
did some weird stuff.
Well, you also when we were at Ghoulish, you told a story about, was it your communion or
Mm.
or I don't remember what it was, where you went to mass dressed,
Oh, yeah, my confirmation.
your
Yes,
confirmation.
my
Wh-
confirmation, I had my Ozzy Osbourne shirt and my demon skull rings, and then I had a pentagram around my neck, and I got communion during the confirmation, yeah. And it was like one of the bishops of the archdiocese of Massachusetts, which now we know are a bunch of pedophiles, so he had no right to judge me.
Mhm.
But he recoiled like I was a tarantula. Like he was like, "Rear," when he saw that. And I was just like, put it in my mouth, bitch.
Yeah.
I was just doing the devil horns. in
That's
all of my
awesome.
pictures with my family.
You're
So
my hero. And they let you do it. That's amazing.
they had no choice. And they said, like, if I could just get through confirmation, I'd never have to go to church again, so I happily did it. But I'm like, "I'm gonna do it my way," and I did it.
That's cool. I love that. I love that story when you told it. I was like, I really hope I get a chance to bring it up. And we did. So great. I just loved a lot of things about it. It did. And I'm a fan of slow burns, but like you were saying, I think there was a bit of a detriment to this movie, just how slow it was. But still, like, I'm a huge fan of 70s movies, as
Mhm.
people who listen to this podcast know. So I think it's an underrated, like, cult classic. And I'm glad that people, I think it's starting to gain a little steam. There was a Blu-ray released recently, like I said, and it's wider access to people watching it, which is cool. I always like to see.
I think it
Uh,
was, it's a little bit. I like slow burns too, but I like slow burns like House of the Devil slow burn, right? Where there's a
right.
payoff at the end where you're like, "Oh shit," like it's like a little bit crazy stuff goes on at the end, But or I don't know if you've seen Speak No Evil, which is a Danish horror film that just came out.
I haven't seen that
Um,
yet. Now,
oh, oh,
Speak No
I
Evil.
mean,
Writing it down right now.
Jesus God. I mean, but
Oh,
I
is that
will.
the one on Shutter?
It's on Shutter. Yeah, it's
Yes, I've heard of
Danish,
it.
and it's subtitled, but not. It's mostly in English. There's a
Mhm.
reason that it's subtitled though, but it's just the slow burn again. And the last 30 minutes of that movie was like somebody ripped my guts out and spoon fed them to me. Like I was like, oh, and like nothing gets to me because I watch horror movies all the time. Like, but I was shocked by this movie. So I like that kind of slow burn. But this one, I don't think it had no payoff for me at the end. It was kind of just like, meh. It was like if all those guys did nothing, and it was just like kind of this. You didn't really see much of anything going on, but in all fairness to the movie, I don't think it was supposed to be that. Like that it wasn't supposed to be a horror movie per se. Like it was supposed to be like a psychological kind of mind fuck of a movie. Like I wouldn't, it just wasn't. It didn't seem that scary or anything to me. But I think that's something that, like, if somebody was gonna get introduced to horror in the '70s, that would be a good one because
Right.
it's not that bad. It's just maybe I'm just too desensitized.
Where's the blood? Where's the guts? Where's
Come
the
on.
where's the exploding heads?
Oh, well, we had the misogyny though, so we can say that we had that, so that's
Yeah.
always good, right?
Yeah. So what we do now is we rate the movie out of 5 upside down crosses. So what would you give Let's Scare Jessica to Death?
I would give this a 3 upside down crosses.
Okay. That's a solid movie.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
I wasn't mad about it. I wasn't
Mhm.
mad about it. It was just, it was a little bit timid for me.
And is this a movie you think you'd recommend to others?
Like I said, it might be a good one for someone who isn't that into, like, the more extreme stuff. Like, if somebody just wants, like, a chiller thriller, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
that would be a good one to recommend. I think everybody should see it though, because it's like, yeah, I mean, everybody should watch all the '70s horror movies anyway.
Yes.
Because
That's what I was looking
I
for.
know
Thank
you
you.
know that. I know you know that. But
I
it's
know I
like,
fed that line to you, but I appreciate it.
yes, because it's just there's such a unique quality to those movies that are just so. I mean, even just like the color and the actual film they use and just the way they
Grain.
speak and yeah, the graininess. It's just like I don't know. It makes me nostalgic because I was born in the '70s, so
Yeah. Okay. I think I am right there with you. I'm probably a little bit higher than you. I think I enjoyed it a little bit more, but I'm at like 3.5 upside down crosses.
mm.
It was just a lot of fun. It was surprising, and I love a movie that has a twist that is actually really good, and that you can see throughout the movie. Like if you go back to watch it, and I had seen Let's Scare Jessica to Death, which is funny enough. I had rented it from Vulcan Video when it was still open, so it's only within the last decade that I've seen it. But I completely forgot about anything that happened within it, so it was still a surprise for me when it turned out to be a vampire movie. I was like, "Oh, fucking great!" And there was a movie that I did fairly recently. The first season that turned out to be a vampire movie, and I didn't watch any trailers or anything. I just went into it completely blind, and it turned out to be a vampire movie. And you didn't find out until like like the second half, and I just love that. It's so masterful when you can do that.
What movie was it?
Well, I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to like spoil it for you if you haven't seen it. But it's a Guillermo del Toro movie.
Oh, is it Kronos?
Kronos, yeah.
Yeah, I've already seen it.
Well,
Come
okay,
on. Oh,
yeah,
it's so good. No, I didn't get that either, but that's a really good movie.
yeah. And then there's a recent Netflix show that also was Surprise Vampires.
Oh,
Um,
that I might know, so don't say anything.
yeah, exactly. So that all that to say, I love when they surprise us. Like, I don't think you could do that with like zombies. You can't make a surprise zombie movie. Maybe you can, but it's just something it's charming, something I like. So yeah, I give it 3.5 upside down crosses.
Hmm.
Okay, Susan. So what we do now is, in order for you to be fully absolved of your horror movie sin, I would be suggesting to you 3 movies for you to watch that are similar to Let's Scare Jessica to Death. And it's up to you whether or not you watch them. If you don't, you'll probably burn in the fiery pits of hell. I'm not sure. That's not up to me. That's up to you. But the first couple movies, the first movie I wanted to say was um, The Hideout from 2000, which is an Italian movie, and I think you'll really, really enjoy that one.
All
The
right.
next,
Okay, okay. We'll do it.
the next movie is Carnival of Souls from 1962. And this movie is like a walking dream or even a nightmare at times. You don't know a lot of times what's happening, and you really don't get a sure footing of it the whole movie. So this feels like what Jessica's going through in her mind if we could be in there.
All right. Sold.
And the last one I would say is the haunt. We're going to stay in 70s with The Haunting of Julia from 1977. So those are my 3 suggestions for you, and hopefully you get a chance to watch those. And in the future, hopefully you'd want to come back and we can talk about those or another movie. I'd love to have you. This has been so much fun.
I will do my penance with my heart and soul, and I would love to do this again. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much. If you can once again, please let my guests know how they can support you, where they can follow you, all that stuff.
Pretty much on any social media website, Sharksploitation Sunday, and you'll find me, and YouTube as well. So check me out there. Manasar Press, Amazon, Godless.
Awesome. And thank you once again for being on the show. It's so much fun. I really love talking about this movie with you. I'm so happy you chose it. If you'd like to follow me, you can follow the show on Twitter at MHCPod. You can follow me on Instagram at My Horror Confessional. If you'd like to email the show, you can email me at myhorrorconfessional@gmail.com. We also do have a Patreon. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/myhorrorconfessional. For the last 4 months, we've been donating all of the pledges from Patreon to women's health organizations that are helping women gain access to abortion, because abortion is a right. And so we've been doing that for the past 4 months. We have 2 more months of that. So if that's something that you'd like to contribute to, feel free to do so. If you could also rate the show in whatever podcast platform you choose, 5 stars only, please. And the artwork was done by my friend Cap Mikey. You can follow him on Instagram at Captain_Mikey_art. And the music was done by my friend Taylor Fox. You can follow her on Instagram at the Taylor Fox. That's the show. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.